Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Medium's Porch. I am Kathleen Boldt, your host and spiritual medium, proudly serving you and the Lilydale community as a Lilydale registered medium. Here on the Medium's Porch podcast, we gather as spiritual mediums from around the globe to delve into the service, spiritual process, privilege, and power of communicating with the spirit world. I have some good news. Our program frequency is increasing. I'll be offering weekly discussions that continue to feature global spiritual mediums, as well as introducing you to the unique qualities and characteristics of our registered mediums. And we'll be doing this until the end of June. Now, some of our registered mediums are a little camera shy, so not all of our mediums will be appearing. And we have, I think, 4 registered mediums that run their own podcast. So be sure to tune into the Lilydale radio shows if you want to meet Reverend Angie Apt, Reverend Celeste Elliott, Reverend Colleen Vanderzijden, and Reverend Willa White. They all run their own podcast programs, and you can get to know a little bit more about them through their shows. Now, this will still appear, our program will still appear weekly now on Facebook, and you'll be able to meet the mediums of Lilydale that have stepped up and want to share a little bit about themselves with you. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I want to express my gratitude to our audience. Your interest in mediumship, healing, spirituality, and Lilydale Assembly's activities fuels this and other of the other Lilydale radio programs. So whether you're a regular or occasional listener, we value your presence. So please share our content with those who would benefit. Follow our pages, and support our hosts and guests. Every comment, follow, subscription, and sharing that you participate in contributes to our community more than you realize, or maybe more than you realize. So we do very much appreciate your comments, like I said, your willingness to step up and give us a little bit of feedback about what we're doing and how we can help you and how we can serve you better. Particularly in our show, as you know, I have been working with mediums only, and this is done on purpose. I want to bring forward qualities to you through the medium's personal expression, so you get a sense of the growth of mediumship, the spirituality of mediumship, and how it is something that not only is given to others, but we get power back to ourselves and our personal growth. So those of you that are on this path, those of you out there that are doing your work as a healer, as a medium, or even doing spiritualistic services, ministry, that type of thing, and even if you're not, we're all here. We all have access to these abilities and gifts. And I'm hoping that as you tune in and continue to tune in, that you'll get little tidbits of precious gems that you'll be able to carry with you on your own journey. So I have 2 more announcements that I need to make. Oh, actually, before I do that, another important thing I want to do today, important to me anyway, and hopefully important for our listeners to understand that even though we have all these podcasts, each and every individual is voluntary, bringing forth their stories and interviewing these people on their time to bring this to you and also have growth for themselves. Even though we have all that going on, there are a few people behind the scene. And one of those people is Reverend Celeste Elliott. And she has been invaluable in her support of the Lilydale radio program. I'm sure there's others, but Lilydale radio programs have had an increase in number of podcasters, myself being one of them, in the past year or so. And Celeste has been pivotal in supporting us. We just recently switched over to a new software system, which you'll notice over the next few weeks, a lot of the people that are posting podcasts, you'll start to see a little bit of a graphic difference and maybe even a quality difference in terms of what we're producing. You won't find us on Blog Talk anymore, Blog Talk Radio, but we are moving more in this direction, so you can check out the YouTube page as well. I have my own YouTube page, and I think several of the other mediums have their own YouTube pages as well. So if you can't catch our shows live or at the time that we post them, please know that you can go back and check them on replay and still come back, comment, let us know what you think. So like I said, I have 2 announcements that I also want to make before we introduce our guest for today. And firstly, I want to remind you to mark your calendars for the solar eclipse. Maybe I don't have to do that because there's a lot of buzz about that going on right now because it's coming right through our Lilydale, Western New York, Erie, I think Ohio. There's an arc of, shall we say, dark instead of an arc of light coming through because of the result of the eclipse. And it's very special for many of us that have never experienced that. And we have many relatives and friends that are coming. So if you haven't decided what you're doing for that weekend, please do check out Lilydale. They have programs before, during, and maybe even after. You'll have to check that for sure. But I know that there's a couple programs that if you can't make it physically to Lilydale on the weekend before the eclipse, that's April 7th, 8th, and then, 6th, 7th, and then the day of the eclipse, the 8th. Please know that there's stuff going on still. So check that out online. That's www.lilydaleassembly.org. Now, you'll probably get more information on the eclipse if you check out the Facebook page, the very page that this show is posted upon. So check that out. Go through some of the images and photos and previous posts because they'll tell you a little more about the whole eclipse weekend and what's happening there. I am also thrilled to announce that I am opening a 2 enrollment possibility for those people that are wanting to work on their mediumship, build their spirituality through their mediumship, develop themselves from either a beginner or up to, the intermediate level. Advanced mediums, come on in, we'll have a great time. But as far as students that are beginner level, intermediate, wanting to move in a direction, maybe you want to become a registered medium, maybe you just want to serve your community, maybe you just want to develop your own gifts to a level where you can communicate freely with the family that you love, that are discarnate and on the other side of what we call life, even though that is life as well. So anyway, I wanted to make sure that you were aware that I'm offering this mentorship training intensive as an individual one-to-one program, as a group program with one-to-one contact. And also I'm offering a mediumship coaching program where I give you a little bit of feedback. I can tell you more about that. Next week, I'll be putting that on my website and on my social media. If you're keen to know about that beforehand, please send me a DM, a VM, voicemail, DM, direct message, and let me know that. Let me know your email and I can send you that information directly. If you're seeking personal attention, one-to-one quality feedback, guidance, training to deepen your mediumship practice, this is an ideal program for you. I'll be working with you. We'll be setting our goals. We'll be looking at this in a really customized, individual way. It will be a mentorship program that I wish I had in my early days of discovering mediumship and beginning that exploration. It will, and I kind of laughed at this, it will take us right to the heart of the matter so that we can get to the matter of the heart earlier. So imagine visiting Lilydale this summer, serving at the outdoor services and receiving immediate feedback, receiving immediate feedback for what you're doing so that while you're still on the ground, you can go back and you can explore that immediately with all the people that are available here in their guest mediumship capacity in the outdoor services. You could have up to 200 people that you can allow Spirit to impress you with. Information that can go out to that audience in a way that you can learn so much and you can experience the healing power of that. So in the healing vibes of Lilydale, this is an opportunity for you. So as we go through the coming months, I'll be available for that. If you want to know more about it, let me know. Thank you so much. All right. So I want to start with our guest today. So our guest is from Australia. And Christine Morgan, CSNU, is one of Australia's foremost spiritual mediums and teachers of the spiritual arts. Her natural mediumistic ability stems from a long line of natural intuitive, and she has a heritage of mediumship in her family. And it has been honed in her generation, and her father also was working in spiritualistic ways as a medium, as a minister. He opened his own church. This has been working through her life, and she's been continuing to hone it and help others hone those gifts through the many years that she has been studying and practicing mediumship. Christine is a certificate holder of the Spiritualist National Union in public speaking and demonstration. She is a demonstrating evidential medium according to the Tutor calendar of the Arthur Findlay College and Spiritualist National Union. She is a prestigious teacher, and she has been working as a teacher at Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Science and Spiritual Mediumship in the UK. You will also find her teaching classes at the Journey Within. I know she has one coming up. I believe it's, I better not guess. All right, so it's in April. So you may want to go to the Journey Within and see that class and see what's going on there. Journey Within is in New Jersey, so that's a little closer to home. Christine has worked for 35 years in the field of spiritual mediumship and the intuitive arts throughout Australia, as well as internationally, including USA, Canada, Europe, England, and now Singapore. Through teaching and demonstrating, Christine endeavors to achieve and maintain the standard of true spiritual mediumship, as defined by the great pioneers of spiritualism, bringing a contemporary approach to her work. In high demand for her knowledge and talents by various and diverse organizations, as well as the business community, Christine is available for educational workshops, seminars, as a guest speaker, demonstrations in mediumship, as well as private consultations, grief support, and personal coaching. To follow is our pre-recorded exchange between Christine and myself. Let's welcome Christine Morgan, and let's find out more about what calls her back to mediumship again and again.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, Kathleen. Thank you for your invitation. It's lovely to talk to you. So the big question, what calls you back to mediumship time and time again? I personally think that once you think and feel, actually, once you become ingrained in the craft, it becomes part of your life. So it isn't something you take out of your pocket for a Sunday service or a weekly service. I feel if you are truly in tune with the spirit world and in tune with yourself spiritually, that you actually make it part of your life. So you're not just using it as a commodity, and you're not just using it as something that you do or, you know, make a career out of. I feel what calls myself back is, I love to have a break like everybody else. We all need breaks. But what calls myself back is that knowledge and that feeling of knowing that there is something beyond myself. And that also with that ability that I have, not only can I help other people, but I can help myself. So I feel a security with the spirit world, if I say that to you. I feel there's a security there where my innermost thoughts, my own innermost soul thoughts, if I can speak of it that way, are heard or listened to, and that I have others other than just the regular living people around me who sustain me in my life. So what calls me back is the knowing that there is another support system and the understanding of not just life after death, that, you know, eternity is for everyone, but also that underneath the thread of everything we do in our life, there's this river of love that goes through. And no matter what you do, where you fail, you're always loved by the spirit. And so to me, it is, as a spiritualist, it is my religion, if I want to say that. And it's my calling, I feel, to use the ability that I have. But I feel also it aids myself as well as others. And it calls me back all the time. I think to not do mediumship, my soul would be bereft. I think my soul would be bereft to think that all of a sudden it was cut off. Even just knowing there is others there and something greater than what we are, I think instills in you a deep resonance with life. If you really look at it, it instills with you a deep sacred resonance with life. And really, what a blessing we have to have a life and have this experience.
I think a lot of people do consider it something they turn on and turn off. And of course, I respect that in the sense that we're not exuding our mediumistic power or sitting in the power constantly, because that's right, would be exhausting. But I love what you're saying about the integration into the life. That's what I'm hearing. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's correct. That's correct. I think that you mediumship shouldn't just come out of your pocket. I think you should live it. That doesn't mean you have to live and breathe the spirit and you can't be realistic. You still are fundamentally a human being with all the experiences and failures and triumphs. So you know, you're not holier than thou. You're not some floating angel. You're a real person with experiences. That's what you're here for. However, I do believe that fundamentally, if you really understand the sacredness and the sanctity of mediumship and the link with the spirit world, there is something greater in the principle of life than just living it.
Right.
And so I feel sometimes today the sacredness, or the, for want of a better word, sacredness, but also the sanctity of it. You know, it's a sanctuary, the spirit world. It's a sanctuary within ourselves. It's a place where we go, the power. It's my inner sanctuary where I go. If I have a problem, if I'm stuck with something, if I have something I can't work out, I'll talk to the spirit world. Of course, I'll talk to people here, but I do share my innermost thoughts with the spirit world as well. So I feel that you should really look at that at a deeper level, because yes, everybody comes out with the same old. Oh, I do it to help people. I do it to support people. I bring aid to grief. And of course you do, because we can all do that. Of course, that's part and parcel. But there also has to be a deeper level which relates to the self and the understanding of self in this life experience. That's what I feel.
That's beautiful. I really appreciate that you're talking about this, because what it makes me feel is that we're not reaching outside of ourselves for our answers when we connect with the power in our spirit. And I know a lot of people that I've encountered over the years that are not following or not in tune with this kind of work have mentioned to me that, you know, we're chasing something outside of ourselves for our answers, or we're going outside, or we're asking, you know, psychics or mediums
Yeah.
for into our lives, when in fact, are we asking them, or are we asking ourselves, and is spirit helping us reach that place? So I love how you presented this, because it really gives credence to the fact that this is the potential within the mediumship, right? We can go into ourselves and be guided and supported and shown the way, basically, through
Of
these
course.
words that are essentially connected divinely with us at all times. So I love that. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I just think that there's a great philosophy of the work that we do, and I think sadly sometimes the philosophical aspect is missing with some people, and I think that that's very important and very relevant. And it's very important, you know, I feel, to ponder your interconnectedness with what you do, the spirit world and yourself. Where are you in that interconnectedness, and to contemplate those sort of things? Again, you don't have to be holier than thou. It's not some sort of, you know, religious order that you have to live this life by and these set of rules. It's about experience, but I really think it gives a hand to deeper thinking about yourself, how you operate, who you are, understanding a responsibility, understand the principles of what we work as a spiritualist, if we're a spiritualist, the principles which are so expandable and so interchangeable with our understandings. They can be expressed in many different ways, but fundamentally, they all say the same thing.
Now, you've done work and research on world religions. You've worked with different cultures. I know you had said that you worked near Australia there, Singapore, among other cultures, and they come at this with a whole different vantage point.
Yes, I work in Singapore. I'm about to probably work in Jakarta, Indonesia as well, which is a country that doesn't really follow anything that we do like this. And I think it's about accepting gracefully that everybody has a different pathway, different understanding, a different concept of what they think the spirit world is. And you can only approach people in those countries with your understanding. But one of the things that I found in some of these places that I've worked, especially in the eastern side of the world, is to dispel fear. Because there's a lot of mythology, which I love. There's a lot of cultural depth. There's a lot of integral religious beliefs, which are important to people's livelihood because it's their concept, their understanding. And so if you approach it respectfully and gracefully, you actually find that there's elements of their belief systems that actually meet with ours. They're just maybe presented in a different way. So yes, working in Singapore at first, I said to the spirit world, okay, This is going to be a big thing. There is mediums and psychics in Singapore, obviously, but there's a lot of mythology and a lot of misunderstandings. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of, for want of a better word, intrigue and maybe reluctance. But fabulously, I've been blessed because the spirit world, the first trip I went, I said, be with me, be with me. And I think I was the first medium to demonstrate publicly the afterlife in a huge demonstration. And that was done when I was invited by a girl that I teach who lives up there. And she has done very well there because she's come to our way of thinking. She does her own thing, but she definitely believes and knows of the afterlife and is a lovely medium herself. And so she has come to the way of thinking and understanding that she finds a balance between where she lives with these people and cultures and what she expresses. And so when I went to work in Singapore, I had a myriad and hundreds of questions thrown at me and comments about, you know, you're pulling up the devil, they don't want to talk to you, you can't raise the dead, and will they be haunting us? And what about the ghosts and all the blah, blah, blah. And then once you sit down and explain to people and talk about it and you rationalize it, you get to that level of understanding where they do have a concept in the afterlife and the belief systems and the spirit. It's just expressed differently. So it was a learning curve for me as well. But it's grown. Singapore has grown. In fact, I'm about to go again in May, third visit in 12 months. It's grown. And I have a lovely group of girls who I'm teaching privately from Singapore who are doing extremely well. And some of these girls actually come from different backgrounds, you know, with a lot of cultural beliefs, a lot of cultural superstitions. But I find them fascinating and interesting. So rather than in the approach of, oh, well, you know, you have to do it my way, I think you need to take it on board and look at what they get out of it and then marry that up with how we can work with it. And you understand that really it's one big playing field, just different expressions.
Right. And in the end, you're tuning into the spirit world, which has that greater intelligence that's going to guide you
Yeah,
in the
that's
process of
right.
understanding and seeing the soul of the person across from you, whether you're teaching them or whether you're doing messages.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, I did a rather larger public event at this public demonstration, and there was all sorts of religions and cultures there and a total disbelief in the room. So everybody's sitting down for dinner and there was a total disbelief. It was almost palpable. And I thought, I wonder how this is going to go this evening. Sent thoughts out to the spirit world. You know, a lot of people sitting there with their arms folded, waiting for you to prove it, etc. And so I stood up and I said, I can't prove it to you. I can only offer you the evidence of it. I can only talk to you about it, but I can't prove it to you. So if you want to engage, we can let things flow naturally and maybe show you some insights into the understanding we have of life after death. And they were ended up being a beautiful crowd, wonderful connections. And particularly, I remember a particular gentleman, he was very adamant. He was from Iran. And did not believe at all, but he's very much a part of this corporate group. And without giving away confidences, he had lost someone quite close. And of course, they communicated. And, you know, he was someone, he came up to me afterwards. He said, Christine, I just didn't want to come tonight. I came because I had to. He said, but it's the best thing I've done for years. I can't believe what you've spoke about and how you've shared that experience, because now you're giving me thoughts that I need to go away and think about this, research it, and maybe look for a deeper understanding other than what I know. And his father had communicated, who did not believe in this at all, had a totally different religious concept, but he was a beautiful communicator. And so, you know, if you have one person that you touch in that crowd, even though it was a fabulous demonstration, Danny, my friend who I work with there, worked with me, it was wonderful. That one person really inspired me, thought, I've got to keep at this. I've got to keep coming back here, because I thought it was a one-off. I thought, no, I've got to keep coming back here. There's something here that's needed. So, you know, I just put it all down to experience. And the biggest thing for me, Kathleen, is I trust the other world. I throw it to the other world. Okay, this is where I'm going. This is where the invite is. I will take that risk and let's do that. And it could have failed, but it didn't. Singapore's become very successful.
Yeah, that trust in spirit is so, so vital.
Yeah.
And what a blessed journey it's been to get to that place where I'm like, okay, I listen. What do you have for me?
So mediumship flows through that psychic faculty of the mind, and psychic work flows from the mind. So when you're with the presence of the spirit, you indeed may feel the presence of the spirit, but the information you might be perceiving or receiving could just be limited in that psychic element where you're not blended strong enough to be able to hold the communicator or distribute information from the communicator. But when you're working and you're in and out, you definitely can feel the presence of the spirit, but the mind might still be picking up psychic information. So what it is, it's like we all know that you must always have evidence when we have a communicator, right? So you understand that. But when you're working psychically, if there's an evidential communication waiting, or even one, it is still possible that the presence of that spirit person is still there and they can hear you while you're still working and you've dropped your vibration to work psychically with the person. That's what can happen in a crossover, when sometimes in a reading you do a link, and then you might get a psychic, then you might have another person from the spirit world. What we aim to do is to hold the spirit to communicate, and then maybe some people start intuitively, or some people then drop to the intuition. So it just depends where you are in your power at that moment, and your sitter, and the needs of the sitter, and also the needs of the spirit. Because, we have to look after their needs first, and also the sitters. So it just depends. There is definitely a difference. A lot of people will mix up the psychic for the spirit because they feel a shift of energy, and sometimes it's just their own energy, which can be perceived as the presence of the spirit. So one of the things as well is, remember, the presence of the spirit can be there without personality. So just because we feel the presence of the other world does not mean there's a personality ready to communicate. And a lot of people can't get their head around that. The presence of the power of the spirit world can be there without the need of a personality for recognition.
Right, and it's in those moments that we may then drop into
That's right.
Through the spirit.
Absolutely. And yes, and we certainly know that the spirit world can hear us psychically when we work, if they're there. Sometimes if the psychic reading is just directly psychic, it just stays there, and you might feel the other world, but you might not blend with it strong enough to bring through communication. And then other times you might do a little bit of up and down, particularly in private work, depending how the mind is working. But the spirit world can be there, and they can be listening to what you're saying psychically. We do know that. The fact is, there's a transference crossover, and we don't know exactly when the crossover is, other than the information and the feeling we have from the other world. It's all about our feeling of them, knowing I've got a man now. I know that the man I just spoke to about is your next door neighbor still living, but now I know I have the gentleman from the other world. There's that defining transference where that knowing comes in. And all of that just comes with experience, blending, and understanding where you are in the power at any given time. But you certainly can be ready for work and feel the presence of the other world and still work psychically, but not communicate.
I see. I see the distinction there. Absolutely. Good. Well, you have come from a family that was heavily psychic and heavily connected to mediumship and communication, spiritualism, and you've called yourself the reluctant psychic. So tell us a little bit about what that means to be reluctant.
The reluctant medium, my goodness. Well, I never wanted to do it. My father was a medium in the UK for 50 years. My grandfather on my mum's side worked with mediumship for a little while. My grandmother, his wife, my mum's mum, very, very psychic in her family. There was always a strain of people reading the flames and the fire, pyromancy, reading cards, and particularly the tea leaves, reading jewelry. So the psychic stream ran through the lineage. My grandmother used to see the spirit world very naturally. So does my mum, who's still here. My mum would see the spirit very naturally, and she would just know things, not developed, not trained. She just has an inner sense of knowing. And my grandmother spoke about it quite a lot when we were younger. So I grew up with my grandmother reading tea leaves, my mum and her sisters reading jewelry, interpreting dreams. And then my dad, my parents were divorced, was developing mediumship from the age of 18, 19 in the UK. So he became a very wonderful medium and a spiritualist church president, and ran his church for 40 years. And very, very good at what he did. And that's how I really got started. And so the lineage was in both sides of the family. It was from my biological dad and my mum's side. So it's sort of molded. And I didn't want to do it. I was a hairdresser. I just didn't want to do it. I wasn't interested in, I thought it was full of old ladies wanting to contact their husbands, you know, and going to church every Sunday. I was so ignorant and naive. And then I started to go to visit my dad in the UK because I was then living in Australia. And I spent a lot of time in the UK back and forwards with him. And so I used to go to his church and I used to sit in development groups. I got involved a little bit with just going to watch him in services, but never wanted to do it. When I returned to Australia, I'd had several experiences as a teenager, which I'd shared with my mum. So I knew things. I had very vivid dreams, a lot of perception about psychic projection of knowing what's going to be on the news, or I'd have a dream about, I remember once dreaming about a helicopter crash and people being killed, and I woke up and there it was on the breakfast news and things like this. So the psychic faculty was always there. So what I really had to do was come back to Australia and learn. And what I did, I didn't have a circle or anything. I had to sit at home. So my dad taught me how to sit. And I used to sit every morning with the spirit myself. I devoured books, research, as much study as I could. I did parapsychology for 4 years. Then I ended up going to the Arthur Findlay College, which was a bit of a shock because I had no intention of going there through my dad. I did some courses there. And all the time before that, and even before the college, I was developing and working. And I started to do readings because people requested them. So I did them 1 day a week while I worked as a hairdresser. And I just thought, oh, I just don't think I can do this talking to dead people. And, you know, but it became very natural. That the thing I had to do was I had to learn, Kathy. I had to learn about it. And my dad was quite old-fashioned, very strict, old school. And he'd say, no, 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 miss. You have to read. You have to learn about philosophy. You have to learn about spiritualism. You need to understand this. Don't just think you can do this, you know. So I was that reluctant young woman. Well, you can't, you know, I don't know, Dad. I just think, you know, it's spontaneous. I don't know. No, something happened, a few things happened, and something happened that really changed for me in my very early 20s, where I just decided I wanted to pursue it. So I just started to read. I started to venture to different groups, look at meditation groups and practice. And my mum told me that she was once told years and years ago that I definitely would actually be involved with something. Yeah. That she was told you will have a child that will definitely work in a psychic field. I just didn't want to do it. But now I can't imagine doing anything else. It's 35 years now, 35 years since I started. And I just cannot imagine doing anything else. It just was a natural unfoldment. I never started to teach until I was told, I think you should be teaching now, Christine. Maybe you should be taking a group of beginners or doing meditation, because I always held back. And sometimes I think, did I start teaching too quickly? Sometimes I would love to go to a group and listen to a lecture or philosophy or get involved in a class. And I was very blessed with some of the great teachers that I had in my experience. I went to different courses and I had some really wonderful teachers as well as my dad. So I was very reluctant, but it's a reluctance now that I'm glad I didn't charge into it, because at the time it happened naturally, whereas now a lot of people want to charge at it and they want to be this and they want to be that, get the contact. I want to be a medium. I want to be a psychic. I want to change my career. That was not for me. It unfolded naturally. And once it did unfold, I sort of became addicted. I thought, I really like this.
Do you have any wonderful anecdotes that people can to listen to about your experiences that brought that joy and that addictive, pleasant experience?
I just started to realize that, you know, once I really took on board that I was able to perceive something beyond myself and have no previous knowledge of, I just thought it was amazing. I just thought, oh my God, it's like magic. And then, you know, you get through all the excitement of the beginning when you're devouring books and you're reading and you're writing, and it was like research, read, practice. So I went through this very intense period of wanting to know more. I wasn't happy with someone saying you're a clairvoyant. I wanted to know, how did clairvoyance work? I wasn't happy that I could get evidence of someone. I wanted to know, how did I get it? What happened to me? Where was I in that moment? So I have this very intriguing mind and a creative mind, and I have a crazy imagination, which doesn't always help. A vivid imagination, and many times my dad would say, "You're wrong," or I'd get something wrong, or I'd expand it and pad it and it would be rubbish. And I learned the hard way, believe you me. And that was just that I was realizing and recognizing how much the imagination comes into play as a much needed faculty of mind for the work, but you can go on tangents. So I was lucky I had a strong dad who pulled me back, but also I had good teachers who were quite strict. I just became excited, and I just found a passion in my belly, and I just had a deep knowing that I could make this work in my life. And the more I learned, the more I needed to learn. The more I knew less. And so it fired me, and it still does today. I still get a fire about it. I get excited about things. And I get excited when you see other people get that penny drop. You know, and you go, oh, when a student gets a penny drop, or you see someone else get the penny drops, and you go, you see, there's something bigger, and we're capable of this. We're not elite. We're not superstars. It's not a super phenomena. We are normal, natural human beings in a human experience that have these abilities that become fine-honed to be able to reach to that greater awareness.
Fabulous. All of that makes you a wonderful teacher then, because you're able to answer those questions about how, because you've put that through your own experience, right? You're able to come forward and bring that through to others, and you obviously convey that passion and that excitement still, which is wonderful. So I love that we can hear, as mediums that are at the beginning of this journey, that we can have years ahead where we still have joy. I know myself, the times that it's like everyone is custom. Every reading is custom. Every experience is new. And it's just a lovely reminder that there's value in life, and value in each other, and value in working together with people, because we have this commonality. So that's beautiful. Yeah.
It is.
So, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say there's lots of mediums. There's millions of mediums around the world, and healers and spiritual seekers and doing things. And really, if we all follow our heart and we all know what's deep within us, and we really think about this connection with what we do, we're all in the same, I say we're all in the same dance hall. We're just dancing different steps. And it really can be exciting if you want it to be exciting, but also it's very humbling. And it's joyful, as well as the sadness, where you help people and you uplift the grieving and the healing that's needed. There's also great joy in what you do if you look for it.
And the only thing in our way is ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Yes, the brain, the mind.
So I love how your father really helped you hone in on, shall we say, the skill of it, right? The craft of it, the art of it, the ability to recognize the importance of discipline and consistency. Now, I have a question to ask you about consistency. Do you see the need for consistency with the spirit world because of a human need, or is it more of a need because spirit does like you to be on time? Say for instance, you're sitting at the same time every day, right? And then you don't one day or something. Is that something related to the habituation of the nature of the physical human, or is that really something that spirit needs? What do you think?
I actually think that, I think if you have purposeful intention, that you can be with that other world anywhere. I believe that if your heart and your intention is correct, the spirit world obviously know when it's time to go to circle to develop, it's time to go to a demonstration, or there's a healing that's going to take place, or a private reading, whatever. The spirit will understand that through the manner of thought, the vibration of thought. So they know that, oh, Christine's getting ready for a demonstration, or Christine's going to do a private session, because I'll have blended my thoughts with them beforehand. So they are aware. But they don't hold a clock and hold you to time, though we have a discipline. We use disciplines in circles and groups because it's good. And it does raise that vibration. It's like, one of my spirit friends said, oh, we wait for the light to go on, Christine. And it's like they know when circles hit ready, they know when you're going to do something. But I really believe the habitual side of it is we can create negativity within ourselves and our connection with the other world when we become so structured and it becomes so engineered and so rigid that we lose the freedom of expression of the spirit. If you want to sit in nature, if you want to sit at home quietly, if you want to go for a walk and be with the other world, they're going to be there. They're not going to point sticks and say, oh, I won't be there at that time. I can't do this. I can't do that. So inwardly, it comes from self. But outwardly, it's the physical life here that structures, engineers, and creates demand upon that consistent flow of the divine. And we try to engineer it and structure it to suit our lives. Now, they're not silly. They know that we have lives to live. They know the frailties of the mind and life. But I believe that, you can go for a walk. In fact, I've done it myself lots of times and talk to the other world and have signs or a feeling or a sense that they're with you. So it is purposeful intention at the particular moment where you're at about what you're doing, I believe. That's my opinion anyway.
Appreciate that. No, that is a question I've always asked because I have had that experience where I've been out and about and or I could do a reading anywhere, right? I did one on an airplane one time. It just kind of happened.
You
there we were.
can. We
So,
try
yeah.
to keep everything sacred, but it definitely is. You definitely can do this. It's all about how you work with your disciplines and your mind and your intention.
Yes, and I don't tend to do it just off the cuff. I like to have that sacred space so that the person that's across from me is listening more and
Yeah.
is receiving the value that's coming through and the healing that's coming, etc. So, but yeah, I was wondering about that. So you're sitting in the power and we're getting nourished, we're getting supported. The presence is there without the personality. Um, what has been your experience in helping students that, like your dad helped you at a distance? What has been your experience helping students at a distance navigate that sitting in the power in their own space?
First of all, I do think that you have to practice disciplining the mind. I've got a monkey mind. I've got a very busy mind, very quick. Sometimes I can be the weakest linked. I have a lovely home circle that's been sitting once a week for 14 years. And sometimes I would say to the spirit, I'm the weakest link tonight because my mind was everywhere, depending what's going on in my life. I think the biggest thing is recognize and acknowledge when your mind is busy like that and you're not disciplined. And if something is bothering you where it's taking up mind space, you need to leave it and come back to sitting at another time. And so I would say to you, in your own space, you can create that sense of peace and quietness, but you have to seek it out and you have to be consistent. So I think the key is consistency for me.
Okay.
I think consistency is the key, that you go to make time somewhere, however, how many oftentimes you want to do it through the week or once a day or whatever you want to do, or once a week, and have that consistent, purposeful time to spend with the other world. And I think no time spent with the other world is ever wasted. They will more than meet you halfway. We don't have to sit with ourselves to get information or do anything. We just need to sit to be with the presence, to be with them. And that's what builds our power. And a lot of people now go into the power to grab information where they would benefit more by sitting and building their power, and their power's solidified and work. So when they get up to work, they've got enough to sustain the communicator in the spirit world, rather than going in and looking, which is when the psychic mind gets activated or the brain goes off. So I think that you have to be consistent. I think you have to practice the discipline, and you have to recognize when it's not right for you and your mind's busy, rather than trying to fight it.
Right. No, what is Yoda says, no try, only do, or something like that.
No try, only do. That's right. That's right.
um, Forgive me for not quoting that exactly. What I wanted to ask you before we close here is I wanted to ask you what your thoughts have been about where mediumship is going to as a whole. We see the pioneers, we see what they navigated, we know that they carved a groove for us to fall into in terms of our societies, right? What do you see happening now that we have all this virtual world in which we're working, or anything else related to the present moving into the future? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I do believe personally that some mediumship has become diluted over the years. I do believe that intensity that we had from the pioneers was needed at that time. And I do believe it was according to that time of life and how the universe and everything was in life around people at that time. But I do believe that life has changed, so we have changed, life moves on, and we know ourselves, there's some wonderful teachers of mediumship, wonderful mediums, brilliant healers, wonderful speakers. There's some fabulous people around the world working. Some are well known, some are not known at all, but they still do a wonderful job for spirit. I believe that sadly, some of it has become diluted, and I think that it's become en masse. And I think that's because sometimes there's a lack of sacredness. And so it's something that everybody wants to do. Oh, I want to learn to be a psychic. I want to learn to be a medium. And they look at it for a career change, or they look at it as something just they want to do on a weekend to make extra cash, rather than looking at the depth of the principles of what it is to either be a spiritualist or either become a medium and ingrain that in your life. Where it's going, Kathleen, I have no idea. I do know there is more mediums now than ever before. The quality, I do believe, is good in certain areas. In certain areas, it's very poor. Some of the standards, some people get out there, they start teaching too quickly, they start demonstrating too quickly, and they don't give any fundamental time to the inner development. The inner development has to be good alongside the outer development, because to me, that is what spirit need. That makes you the spiritual medium. The internal before you get to the external. It's no use trying to help other people if you can't help self. So I think where it's going, I have to be honest with you, I have no clue. I just get a little bit sad when you see a lot of, for want of a better word, shallowness around the work. But I guess that can apply to many different areas and many different jobs and work. And I sort of don't think of my life as a job anyway. I love what I do. I don't think of it as a job. I think it's something I've created. Yes, of course, it's a business. I have to make money. I have to feed myself. I have to live. But I also make sure to remind myself that I'm grateful for what I've got. And it's not like getting up and going to work in a normal 9-to-5 job. You do have to be there. You have to be there for others when, you might not want to talk to someone and someone reaches out to you, or perhaps in a time of sadness or grief. I do believe that you have a responsibility. I don't think working with the spirit world should be taken lightly. I think people should look deeper into the philosophy of it. And I think that, yes, we will have great people who have the faculty, who can actually use the faculty. Is that helping spiritual progression? I don't know.
So what would you recommend? I mean, obviously you have your biases, so do I, in terms of where people might go to achieve that depth rather than the shallowness. What would you recommend at this point? Obviously, you teach classes online. You are a CSNU. What would you recommend?
Well, I always recommend looking for a good medium who puts their money where their mouth is. I will say that straight away. If you're going to have someone teach you, you want to know of their background experience, what their credibility is, how long they've been doing it, their own level of understanding. That's very important. And, you want someone who's open-minded and wants to progress as well, who doesn't just sit and rest on their laurels, but also becomes progressive with their work. The Arthur Findlay College is a wonderful college where I'm a tutor, where people can go, of course. There's a lot of areas around where you live. And of course, yes, we work online because of what happened with COVID. And I was working online before COVID, and now it's just expanded. And it works for people. So it's a global community. It works. So you really have to seek someone out who fits with you. And you want someone approachable. You don't want someone full of eliteness and stars. You want someone who's personable, right? You want someone who's personable, who can say, well, I went through that. I understand where you're coming from. That's okay to make a mistake, or that's okay. And we've got some great teachers out there. You've just got to seek them out, but look at their credibility, look at their background, where they've come from, and also look at them as a person. Look at them as a person as a whole. Would you feel comfortable in reaching out to them if you really had a problem in your development? Do you think they're approachable, or are they just teaching a good class? That's really important.
Right. Well, thank you. Yes. So how do we get a hold of you specifically? What is your website?
My website is just plain Christine Morgan, www.christinemorgan.com.au.
Wonderful. And are you doing something in the coming days that you may want to mention here?
Yes, I've got a wonderful trip coming up to Singapore in May. If anybody'd like to go to that, they can look on my website. I have another trip to Singapore. I've got many classes with the Journey Within, which is over your side of the world. So yes, we've got a few coming up there, and I'm at the college, obviously about 4 or 5 weeks this year. So there's lots of little things, but I don't actually put my private groups on my website. But if anybody wants or is interested in joining a private group, they just have to email me and reach out, because I am available for consultations, coaching, and private groups as well.
Beautiful.
Great.
So delighted to have this time with you. I know it was shorter than I usually like to chat on about, but I am so grateful to have your time and have you share with us, Christine. This has
Kathleen, it's been lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. And please do come again or offer your opportunity to speak again. That would be great.
Definitely, most certainly.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
And I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in. And we'll look forward to speaking to another medium in a week to come. Thank you again, Christine.